Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrives in Israel as Washington reviews Hamas' response to hostage deal offer.
There's still a lot of work to be done, but we continue to believe that an agreement is possible and indeed essential.
U.S. court rejects Donald Trump's immunity claim in 2020 election interference case. In ICC Under-19 World Cup, India reached 9th World Cup finals, beat South Africa in a thrilling contest at Benoni. News in detail now. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to visit Israel and the West Bank later on Wednesday as the conflict in Gaza moves into its 4th month. Key mediators from U.S., Qatar and Egypt looking to end the fighting are confident a truce is achievable, as Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
Well, there's certainly quiet optimism here in the region that a deal may be done soon to end the war in Gaza and also free the remaining 130 or so Israeli hostages that remain in the Gaza Strip. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken holding a press conference with Qatar's Prime Minister on the back of a closed-door meeting in Doha. They said they received a response on the general framework of an agreement from Hamas. They say they cannot go into any details they are reviewing and will discuss with the Israelis. Well, Blinken says there's still a lot of work to be done, but he believes an agreement is possible. Hamas releasing a statement of its own, saying it's responded to the proposal in a positive spirit, but wants to end the offensive. Now, on Wednesday, the Secretary of State will spend the day here in Israel. He'll land in Tel Aviv. He'll hold meetings here before travelling to Jerusalem, also the West Bank, where he'll meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. But certainly expected to be a tough day for the Secretary of State. He's up against the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who remains firm in his stance that there will be no ceasefire until Israel's goals in the Gaza Strip are achieved. He came out earlier this week saying one of those goals is to kill every single Hamas leader. In Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates reporting for DD India.
And ahead of Blinken's visit, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told a briefing on Tuesday that the U.S. is reviewing Hamas's response to a hostage deal, asserting that there's still a lot to be done before having a final deal.
It is important that we get to a humanitarian deal. The president and his team has been working around the clock to get this done. We want to make sure we get those hostages home, including the American hostages. We understand there are about 6 of them that are part of that, that are part of the folks who are still part of the hostages, I should be more clear, that are being held. We want to get them home. We want to make sure we get that all-important humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. That's what we're working on.
Meanwhile, the U.S. House of Representatives rejected a Republican-led bill on Tuesday that would provide $17.6 billion to Israel. Democrats said they wanted a vote instead on a broader measure that would also provide assistance to Ukraine, international humanitarian funding and new money for border security. Democratic President Joe Biden, who supports the Senate bill, has, however, promised to veto the House's Israel-only measure. And the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations has denied his country is arming the Houthis as the Yemen-based rebels continue to take aim at vessels in the Red Sea. Amir Saeed Iravani told NBC News' Lester Holt that Iran is not at all responsible for the weapons being used by the group it allegedly funds. Those comments came as the Houthis successfully struck a British and a US ship on Tuesday, casting doubt on the effectiveness of several waves of Western strikes on missile sites belonging to the militants. Benji Hire reports.
So a firm denial from Iran, which also warned the United States not to target a ship, which officials in the US believe is providing vital intelligence to the Houthis to enable their attacks in the Red Sea. The Iran-backed proxy group, which Washington now categorizes as a terror organization, continues to hit commercial vessels in the region. Actions it claims are in support of Palestinians amid the Israel-Hamas war. The White House sees those attacks as a threat to the freedom of navigation, raising concerns about an escalation of the conflict in the Middle East and an impact to the global economy, with a vital artery of trade affected by this violence. The international ships in the fiery line on Tuesday weren't badly damaged in this most recent incident, but it does speak to how the Houthi rebels remain undeterred. They say they'll increase the frequency of these attacks if the war in Gaza doesn't stop. Of course, the devastating civil war in Yemen, which has killed hundreds of thousands of people, is still ongoing after nearly a decade. There, Houthis are fighting the United Nations-recognised Yemeni government, backed by neighbouring Saudi Arabia. The attacks in the Red Sea, the retaliatory strikes by the US since, they seem to have put a hold on prospects of a UN-supported peace process that looked promising earlier last year. But the Biden administration insists it isn't planning on intervening in that conflict by overtly helping groups fighting in the war-torn nation. Benji Hire in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And the United States accused Russia of firing at least 9 North Korean-supplied missiles at Ukraine on Tuesday, while Moscow labeled Washington a direct accomplice in the downing of a Russian military transport plane last month. Russia's UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia and Deputy US Ambassador to the UN Robert Wood traded the accusations at a UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine. Robert Wood said Russia has launched DPRK-supplied ballistic missiles against Ukraine on at least 9 occasions.
To date, Russia has launched DPRK-supplied ballistic missiles against Ukraine on at least 9 occasions. Russia and the DPRK must be held accountable for their actions, which undermine long-standing obligations under UN Security Council resolutions. These unlawful arms transfers and potential technology transfers from Russia to the DPRK undermine regional stability and the global non-proliferation regime, as well as the Security Council's credibility.
Meanwhile, Vasily Nebenzia accused Washington of direct involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war and said the state is a direct accomplice in this crime as well.
Today, we possess irrefutable evidence that a phased array tracking radar for intercept on target surface-to-air missile was used to carry out the strike, which leaves no doubt that Washington is a direct accomplice in the crime as well.
Reports of a strike hitting a bakery in Russia-occupied eastern.
And ahead of his visit to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi met Ukrainian President Zelensky in Kiev on Tuesday. Grossi discussed the current security situation and potential risk at the occupied plant with Zelensky. Grossi plans to visit the plant to assess its feasibility of reducing staff and the safety of its aging uranium fuel. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ordered the creation of a separate branch of Ukraine's armed forces devoted to drones, which is a key part of the conduct of the war against Russia on Tuesday. Zelensky signed a decree calling on the government and general staff of the armed forces to work out issues on this creation within the forces of a separate force for drone systems. As per Zelensky's decree, the results of the study would be submitted to the policy-making National Security and Defense Council. Government said Ukraine aims to produce tens of thousands of drones every month.
Defending assaults on battlefields is very often, thanks to drones, the destruction of the occupiers and their equipment. That's also drones. The task list for now is very clear: staff positions for working with drones, special units, effective training, and systemizing the experience in large-scale production, as well as attracting the best ideas and the best specialists to this sphere. These are tasks now for the Army, the Defense Ministry and the government in general.
And in an apparent bid to shore up stalling support for Kiev, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will visit Washington this week. Scholz will visit Europe's efforts to help Ukraine. He will have one-on-one talks with US President Joe Biden, along with US lawmakers and CEOs on Friday, to discuss primarily Ukraine and NATO. An official said that it is important for the Chancellor that all states do their bit to provide support for Ukraine. Scholz's trip comes amid uncertainty over US support for Ukraine, with Congress stalling over Biden's urgent request in October to approve an additional $61 billion. Meanwhile, the New York judge set to deliver a verdict in the Donald Trump civil fraud trial has ordered attorneys in the case to give him details about possible perjury by former Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg. In a letter docketed, Judge Arthur Engoron asked lawyers in the case to provide him with a letter detailing anything you know about the situation involving Alan Weisselberg. Engoron said the matter could affect the timing of the final ruling in the case, which is expected by mid-February. Trump, the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, is accused in the lawsuit of inflating his net worth by billions of dollars to secure better loan terms. Trump has denied wrongdoing and called the case a political vendetta. The Republicans' attempt to impeach Joe Biden's immigration chief has failed as lawmakers in the U.S. House of Representatives voted against the motion. The House, in a 214-216 vote, blocked the committee's impeachment charges against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. 4 Republicans bucked their leadership, joining Democrats in opposing the charges against the cabinet member. Earlier, Senate Republicans appeared to have killed a bipartisan border security deal. The measure was an effort to solve the border security problems, including record numbers of illegal immigrants arriving at the southern border with Mexico. Moving further, Pakistan tightens security and sets up voting stations a day before the general elections. The South Asian nation will go to polls on Thursday in a widely watched election that will lead to the formation of a new government. The elections are taking place after months of delay, as the country has been at the center of political, economic and judicial drama over the past year. The February 8 elections will take place for 336 seats in Pakistan's National Assembly, the lower house of parliament, along with 4 provincial assemblies. The top contenders include former PM Nawaz Sharif and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, chairman of Pakistan People's Party. Three Senegalese opposition lawmakers were arrested on Tuesday amid the fallout from Parliament's move to delay a presidential vote by 10 months that prompted West Africa's economic and political bloc to call for the re-establishment of the electoral calendar. On Monday, lawmakers approved a last-minute amendment to hold the vote on December 15th instead of February 25th, sealing an extension of President Macky Sall's mandate that has sparked street protests and international alarm. Later on Tuesday, ruling coalition lawmakers held a press conference to defend the move, urging citizens to take part in a national dialogue to ensure a free and transparent vote. All right, we'll step into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. In Sri Lanka, the 5th session of the 9th Parliament to be ceremonially declared open today by the President. Amid unabated rise in cases, Rio de Janeiro declares dengue emergency days before Carnival kicks off. And all set for world's largest carnival in Rio de Janeiro.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Colombia's government and National Liberation Army rebels have agreed to extend a landmark truce deal that expired last week. The bilateral ceasefire is extended for another 6 months starting Tuesday. The same day, they announced the creation of a fund backed by multiple donors to finance the process. President Gustavo Petro signed in August last year a deal with ELN for a 180-day halt in fighting following lengthy negotiations. The truce was lengthened by 5 days after it expired last week. Although the ELN has suspended kidnappings during negotiations, its leaders asked the government for financial resources, among other items. Pablo Beltran, head of the ELN's negotiation team, said that the fund must be managed with transparency to avoid corruption. At least 10 people were killed and many injured in a blast at a popular open-air market in Mogadishu, Somalia. The Islamist group at Al-Shabaab is known for bombings in Somalia and other countries. The government was not immediately available for comment. Bakara, Mogadishu's largest market, is where most residents buy daily items like food, clothes, medicines and electronics. Now, Chilean ex-president Sebastián Piñera died in a helicopter crash in southern Chile, prompting outpouring of condolences from Latin American leaders. Piñera, who served 2 non-consecutive terms between 2010 and 2022, often spent his summers near picturesque lakes and frequently piloted his own helicopter. President Gabriel Boric declared 3 days of national mourning, and preparations have begun for a state funeral on Friday. The other 3 passengers survived the incident. Now, the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro has declared a dengue health emergency just days ahead of Carnival's kickoff, where thousands of people are expected to be partying outdoors. According to official data released, Brazil has registered more than 260,000 probable cases of dengue fever since January. There have been 29 confirmed deaths and 173 deaths are under investigation. To cope with the rise in cases, local health authorities have announced the opening of 10 care centers, the creation of an emergency operations center and the allocation of hospital beds for the dengue patients. The announcement comes as tourists and revelers are pouring into Rio de Janeiro to take part in street parties and attend the Samba School's flamboyant parades. Peruvian emergency officials have recovered the bodies who died in a landslide in central Junín, a province of Satipo, after heavy rains lashed the region. The landslide occurred on February 1st when a hill fell covering part of the district of Mazamari. The bodies were recovered on February 4th from a farming family collected in Corcuma. Heavy rains also caused destruction in the Arequipa and Piura regions. A severe rainfall caused power outages and water shortages in Holbox, Mexico, leaving tourists without power and water. The cold front number 32 affected the island, causing material losses and power outages, but no fatalities or injuries were reported. Now, Southern California experienced heavy rainfall, leaving flooded streets, mudslides and debris. Flood watch was in effect for much of Southern California, with flash flood warnings posted for the Orange County coast and flood advisories issued as far south as San Diego and the U.S.-Mexico border. The latest storm, a less powerful one, also qualified as a Pineapple Express originating from subtropical waters around Hawaii. Cleaning efforts continue in San Diego and Orange County. Drone footage captures snowfall in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Canada, causing widespread paralysis. Cape Breton Regional Police issued a state of emergency requiring shelters and clearing roads for emergency response. A.V. Ellsworth, who filmed the footage, was trapped inside his house for 5 days. Schools and businesses remain closed and cleanup continues. And the heir to the throne, Prince William, will undertake his first ceremonial duties on Wednesday since his father, King Charles, was diagnosed with cancer. Britain's head of state spoke with his younger son, Prince Harry, on Tuesday, having flown in the same day from his home in California. Stuart Smith has more from Buckingham Palace.
It was on Tuesday the public first saw the King after that announcement by Buckingham Palace on Monday, which said that he had cancer. As he left Clarence House, his residence in London, with his wife, Queen Camilla, he looked well, he waved to cameras and then boarded a helicopter from Buckingham Palace behind me to then travel 160 kilometres north to his Sandringham estate, where it seems he will remain while undergoing the cancer treatment. Buckingham Palace have stressed that he will be continuing his work as head of state, his duties which include reviewing legislation and signing off on important documents, and also holding regular meetings with the Prime Minister, though seemingly by video call now that he will not be in London. He'll also, though, be delegating many of his other usual events, such as award ceremonies and charity work, to other members of the royal family, such as his oldest son and heir to the throne, Prince William, who has his first public engagement at Windsor Castle since helping his wife recover from abdominal surgery. And the Queen as well, the wife of the King, will also be helping with those public-facing duties while the King recovers. Stuart Smith in London for DD India.
Now in Sri Lanka, the 5th session of the 9th Parliament is scheduled to be declared open today by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Following a ceremonial opening of the session, Wickremesinghe will present the statement of government policy in Parliament. The Parliament has informed that arrangements have been made to hold the ceremonial opening of the 5th session as a formal ceremony, and thus gun salutes and motorcades will not be held. After the President presents the statement of government policy, the House will be adjourned till Thursday. As per Sri Lanka's constitution, the President declares open the Parliament at the commencement of a new session and presides over to present the government's policy statement. Moving on to our next story now, Chile has experienced a devastating wildfire that has killed at least 131 people in recent days, with only 35 identified victims and hundreds missing. The fires, which broke out late last week and spread to central Chile, have become the country's worst national disaster since the 2010 earthquake. President Gabriel Boric has urged funds to be directed towards the hardest hit areas, many of which are popular with tourists. Now, Uganda is considering introducing breeding facilities for lions in 3 selected national parks to increase population. But this is stirring controversy among conservation groups. World Animal Protection, a global animal welfare charity in the UK, says captive breeding has failed before and instead left animals in poor health. The initiative is seen as a ray of hope for the dwindling lion population in the country from 460 in 2022 to 310 now. Isabel Nakiria reports.
Resting on the hilly forest of Mpigi, outside the capital Kampala, is a lion breeding facility. The city's Sea Conservation Centre is raising lions in a caged natural environment on 10 acres of land. From just 4 lions in 2015, the population has now climbed to 26. Conservationists here say confining lions in a natural environment instead of caging them can rapidly grow their numbers because they are closely watched.
But one needs to find out what the underlying problem is before one can reintroduce. Once that is established, then it's easy. A facility like this and even UA can cordon off areas where they breed lions, raise them in a natural way where they learn how to hunt. We're not doing that at the moment. Our lions are habituated because we need to interact with them for medical checkups. It's much easier if you can call the lion and just give him an injection without needing to put him down.
The sanctuary is now cordoning off more land to fit in the expanding population. And they say the big cats need constant attention and proper care to keep the population thriving.
They need to reinforce the policies that governs reinforcing so that the rangers or national parks are really monitored very well, and then also these animals to be vaccinated against these viruses so that we don't lose more of the lions, because even if CTC or any other wildlife facility reintroduces them in the wild and the problem is not being solved, then they will just be released and they will die.
Uganda's lion numbers are going down. The country has lost lions due to suspected poisoning in the recent years. Communities bordering the parks are suspected to be poisoning the lions in retaliation for their attacks on their livestock. Now, the Uganda Wildlife Education Center, or the Entebbe Zoo, is planning to build cages in a natural environment in the national parks to grow the numbers, a similar idea to what's happening at the CTC Conservation Park. Currently, 15 lions are in confinement here at the Entebbe Zoo, and some of them will be used as part of the breeding initiative in the national parks. The lions will be placed in cages in the parks and released after a while under close monitoring. But some conservation groups are against confining lions, warning it could stress the animals and lead to failed health. The Wildlife Education Center refutes this claim, saying the lions will be let out of the cages once in a while to roam under natural conditions.
It's going to be a controlled environment. And we are talking about a project where you're going to employ people. They are going to be observing these animals on a daily in terms of their welfare, their husbandry, but also their natural behavior is what we are promoting. And so we think that since they're in a controlled environment, then you don't have issues of a disease coming in, but also they are going to be observed.
The Wildlife Agency says communities neighboring the parks need also to be educated about the importance of wildlife and supporting community projects like beekeeping or craft shops so they can earn from tourism instead of killing the animals. Isabel Nakiria, reporting for DD India in Entebbe.
Now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Icon of the Sea is the world's largest cruise ship docked in Quintana Roo, Mexico, with thousands of passengers enjoying local attractions. The Royal Caribbean International cruise ship, capable of accommodating 8,000 passengers on board, is scheduled to set sail from Miami. However, environmental groups are concerned about the potential release of harmful methane into the atmosphere by the cruise liner. Now, scientists predict hundreds of billions of cicadas will appear in parts of the United States this spring, marking the first time since 1803. Two broods of cicadas, one from northern Illinois and the other from the southeastern U.S., will cross paths, with Illinois being the only place where both broods are expected to be visible. This rare event could cause crossbreeding among species that could lead to evolutionary changes. Carnival revelers in Rio de Janeiro are preparing for the world's largest carnival, which is celebrated in the iconic Samudrome and are marked by hundreds of street parties known as blocos. Locals and tourists are swarming shops to buy colorful costumes for the massive celebration, which attracts Brazilians and tourists from around the world who take part in elaborate parades in Samudrome and on the streets. All right, time now for another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will reply to the motion of thanks in Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament, on the presidential address delivered to a joint house session on 31st January. And India will fence the entire 1,643-kilometer long border with Myanmar and build a patrolling track next to the fence. And we also tell you about India's remarkable initiative aimed at empowering women and fostering self-reliance. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of what we have done so far. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrives in Israel as Washington reviews Hamas response to hostage deal offer. U.S. court rejects Donald Trump's immunity claim in 2020 election interference case. And in ICC Under-19 World Cup, India reached 9th World Cup final, beat South Africa in a thrilling contest at Benoni. Iran announced the initiation of a visa-free policy for Indian tourists visiting the country. Policy has been rolled out for Indian citizens from February 4th. Individuals holding ordinary passports will be allowed to enter the country without a visa once every 6 months, with a maximum stay of 15 days. Indians wanting to stay for a longer period or make multiple entries within a 6-month period or requiring other types of visas must obtain necessary visas from Iranian missions in India. And Iran has become the latest country in the past few months to give visa-free access to India tourists. Vietnam, Thailand, Sri Lanka have also eased visa rules for the Indian tourists. India will fence the entire 1,643-kilometer long border with Myanmar and build a patrolling track next to the fence, India's Home Minister Amit Shah has said. Taking to X, Amit Shah said, and I quote him, "The Modi government is committed to building impenetrable borders. It has decided to construct a fence along the entire 1,643-kilometer long Indo-Myanmar border. To facilitate better surveillance, a patrol track along the border will also be paved. Out of the total border length, a 10-kilometer stretch in More, Manipur has already been fenced. Furthermore, 2 pilot projects of fencing through a hybrid surveillance system are under implementation. Additionally, fence works covering approx 20 kilometers in Manipur have also been approved, and the work will start soon. And the Indian government on Tuesday issued an advisory to its citizens travelling to Myanmar's Rakhine region not to travel to that zone in view of the deteriorating security situation, disruption of telecommunication services and severe scarcity of essential commodities there. Indian citizens who are already in that state are advised to leave the state immediately. And with an aim to boost cooperation in the field of agriculture, the first meeting of India and Iran Joint Working Group was held in the national capital, New Delhi. During the meet, officials of both the countries emphasized on increasing cooperation in the field of balancing the import and export of agricultural products between the two nations. And India's Minister of State for Defence, Ajay Bhatt, is currently on a 5-day visit to Saudi Arabia from February 4th to 8th for the World Defence Show 2024. The visit has yielded a significant milestone with the signing of a memorandum of understanding that underscores the deepening collaboration between India and Saudi Arabia in the field of defence. The MOS Defence, during his visit to Riyadh, actively engaged in discussions with key Saudi officials, including Defence Minister Khalid bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, where they discussed avenues for collaboration aimed at enhancing regional security. And with an aim to further strengthen India-Bangladesh ties, Bangladesh Foreign Minister Dr. Hassan Mahmood arrived in New Delhi on Wednesday on a 3-day visit to India. And during his visit, Dr. Mahmood is slated to engage in several meetings in addition to his planned bilateral discussions with India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. Earlier, Bangladesh Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Saheli Sabreen said that issues of mutual interest, including trade, connectivity and energy cooperation, people-to-people contacts and regional cooperation will be discussed between the two sides at the bilateral meeting to further strengthen Bangladesh-India relations. Now, Guyana's Prime Minister Mark Phillips received a warm welcome on his arrival in India on Tuesday. As per the Ministry of External Affairs, the visit will further strengthen the multifaceted relationship between the two countries. Guyana's PM is scheduled to hold a meeting with India's President Draupadi Murmu. Now, the budget session of Indian Parliament has been extended by a day till February 10th. The leaders of both the houses to take up questions related to their concerned ministries. Important papers also to be tabled in both upper and lower houses of the Parliament. General discussion on the interim budget of Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir for 2024-25. Discussion and voting on the demands for grants on account of Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir for 2024-25 also to be held. Debate on the motion of thanks on the President's address proposed in Rajya Sabha. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to make a statement on the motion of thanks on President's address in Rajya Sabha, and the upper house also to take up a discussion on the interim budget of Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir for 2024-25. All right, to talk more on this, we are joined by Vikas Sarthi, Lead India's correspondent. Vikas, good morning. Tell us about the important proceedings of the day today, and PM Modi will reply to the President's message in Rajya Sabha today.
Good morning, Abhishek. Right, so in the Lok Sabha, most of the business today is related to the interim budget, where we will see that a discussion on interim budget will begin. And apart from it, the interim budget for Jammu and Kashmir will also be discussed, and all these issues related to Finance Ministry will be discussed together in the Lok Sabha. Later, we expect that tomorrow or day after tomorrow, Finance Minister will give a detailed reply on the budget discussion. As far as the upper house, Rajya Sabha, is concerned, as you just mentioned, that there was a motion of thanks on President's address to the joint session was already going on. It will continue today itself, and some members are yet to speak. Once these members give their view on the President's speech, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, just like in the lower house in the Lok Sabha, will also give a detailed reply in the upper house, where again he will he is going to reiterate whatever his government has done in the past 5 years, and what is the plan ahead, what is the agenda for the government in the future, as the Prime Minister was very confident that for the third time BJP government will come into the power, and when the full budget will be introduced in the Parliament, it will again reiterate the commitment of Modi government for economy, for making India the third largest economy in the world. So it is going to be the same speech, almost same speech, which has already been given in the Lok Sabha. But there are some issues which were raised by the opposition MPs in the Rajya Sabha, and we saw that when the prominent leader of opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge, was speaking in the upper house, Prime Minister was there, and he was there to listen the whole debate of Mallikarjun Kharge. So he will give a rebuttal to that speech and will give a point by point whatever his government has done in the past 5 years and what Modi government has done in the last decade. All these things will be part of the statement of Prime Minister. We expect that.
All right, Vikas, also, I mean, the ongoing budget session of the Parliament is being extended by a day till Saturday, as we learn. Can you elaborate more on the list of the reason of this?
Right, Abhishek. So when Finance Minister was giving her budget speech in the Lok Sabha, she mentioned that the government is going to bring a white paper on the state of economy when this government came in the power in 2014, and what is the state of economy today. What were the mismanagements by the UPA government till 2014? All these things will be the part of that white paper. So for that particular business, the lower house has been extended for 1 day, and apart from it, in the Rajya Sabha, some members are completing their terms. So in the Rajya Sabha, we also see that there will be farewell speech of those members. These will be the two important agenda for the for this extended budget session. And in the Rajya Sabha, some new members have come and some are completing their terms, so that will be also part of the Rajya Sabha. But Finance Minister already said that she is going to bring that white paper, and we will see that on Saturday. Once again, the government will attack Congress government for its worst management of economy during their tenure.
Because also, last question before we leave you, Parliament usually does not function on the weekends, but have there been instances in the past when the houses have met on Saturdays too?
Right, Abhishek. We have seen in the past, though not very frequent, but on some occasions we saw that Parliament also functioned on Saturday, particularly when an important discussion was going on. So it's not a unique thing. It has happened past, but you just rightly mentioned that not so frequently Parliament functions on a Saturday, but there has been some instances where Parliament also discussed and debated certain important business on Saturday as well.
All right, Vikas, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for getting us the latest from New Delhi. All right, now let's take a look at other stories making news. India's Anti-Money Laundering Agency Enforcement Directorate made today request for an early hearing on the case at Delhi's Rose Avenue Court against Arvind Kejriwal for ignoring its summons repeatedly. The ED has issued summons to Arvind Kejriwal 5 times in the money laundering case related to Delhi liquor policy scam, but he has failed to appear before the ED, skipping all of them. Following this, the investigating agency had approached the Rose Avenue Court last Saturday. India's politician Sharad Pawar's National Congress Party has been stripped of its election symbol by the Election Commission of India. The symbol, meanwhile, has been allocated to the political faction of his nephew Ajit Pawar. The Election Commission, in a special concession to Sharad Pawar Group, allowed it a one-time option to claim a name for its new political outfit and sent 3 preferences to the EC by 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time on Wednesday. Preparations of the Indian Air Force for its mega exercise Vayu Shakti 2024 to be held on February 17th is presently underway at the Jodhpur Air Force Station in the Indian state of Rajasthan. During the exercise, the Air Force will demonstrate its air power and operational capabilities by focusing on interoperability and maneuvering expertise. And amid intense cold wave conditions across India's Himachal Pradesh, visuals of fresh snowfall at the Atal Tunnel in Rohtang shared by Manali Police is doing rounds on the internet. Meanwhile, with predictions of snowfall throughout the state for the next 2 days, the Regional Met Centre in Simla issued an orange alert for the state. A remarkable initiative aimed at empowering women and fostering self-reliance was organized in northern India's Udhampur. The program also aimed at protecting the planet from plastic as women stitch jute bags for a greener future. We'll slip into another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. With farmer protests over Europe in full swing, a strict target set by European Union to dramatically reduce emissions in the next decade. Top sports score to hear Simona Halep's doping ban appeal suspended since October 2022. And we'll show you a stunning National Heritage Park in China glittering with lanterns combining traditional aesthetics with modern elements.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. The European Union has set itself a strict target to dramatically reduce emissions in the next decade, despite ditching other environmental laws. The moves come as farmer protests disrupted several European cities in the last 2 weeks. Alex Cartier reports from Brussels.
Well, just 5 days ago, this square outside of the European Parliament was completely blocked by thousands of tractors. Farmers lit bonfires, threw eggs at the European Parliament building and bricks at police. Now it's been cleaned up and the European Commission has backed down on some of its new environmental rules. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that she would scrap a target to halve the use of pesticides in Europe and roll back on climate targets, specifically for the agricultural sector. Rules on animal welfare and allowing land to rest in order to allow rejuvenation have also been scrapped. But the main announcement stayed. The European Commission has recommended the EU reduce emissions by 90% by 2040. Nevertheless, Ursula von der Leyen's European People's Party in the European Parliament is under increased pressure from the far right ahead of elections in June. Some of those right-wing parties were here with the farmers during their protest, courting their votes just a few days ago. Polling shows that far-right parties across the EU are on course to have their best election ever. Heading into the last elections in 2019, young people had been staging climate protests across Europe. And back then, Ursula von der Leyen proudly campaigned in favour of a Green Deal and pushing ambitious climate targets for the European Union. She said Europe would be the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This time, farmers have taken to the streets. They blocked most of Brussels just last week and blockaded the port of Antwerp. They also took over motorways in France. They protested in Greece, Portugal and Italy. Under pressure from farming groups, the political mood and the EU's world-leading climate policies are now starting to shift. Alex Khadje in Brussels reporting for DD India.
And US stocks ended higher on Tuesday as investors digested the latest corporate earnings. Markets rebounded after comments made over the weekend suggesting the Federal Reserve would be wary of cutting interest rates too soon. DD India's Sally Patterson has more.
US stocks tanked after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the US is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The central bank chief said America is racking up dangerous amounts of debt because of its excess spending. And he said future generations are likely to suffer the consequences. But on Tuesday, US indexes rebounded, with the Dow closing up 0.4%, the S&P 0.2% and the Nasdaq 0.1%. Music streaming app Spotify closed the day higher after reporting a better than expected increase in Q4 subscribers. Premium subscribers rose to 236 million during the quarter. It closed the day up 3.9%. Meanwhile, JP Morgan Chase plans to open more than 500 new bank branches over the next 3 years. The bank, which is one of the largest in the US, says it will hire 3,500 employees in that time. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
You're watching DD India News. Our time now for sporting updates. India entered a consecutive fifth Under-19 World Cup final as they beat host South Africa in the first semi-final of the Under-19 World Cup by 2 wickets at Willowmoor Park at Benoni on Tuesday. Chasing 245, middle-order batter Sachin Das hit 96 runs, while captain Uday Saharan scored 81 to bail India out after a top-order collapse. Earlier, Luhander Pretorius and Richard Seletswan smashed half centuries to help South Africa post 244 for 7 in 50 overs. For India, Raj Limbani took 3 wickets, while Mushir Khan also bagged a couple of scalps. India will play the final against the winner of the semi-final between Australia and Pakistan. The match between Australia and Pakistan will be played today. And India will tour Zimbabwe for T20I series in July, right after the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and the USA. Zimbabwe Cricket Board and the Board of Control for Cricket in India on Tuesday announced that Zimbabwe will host India for 5-match series in Harare starting July 6th. This is India's 4th trip to Zimbabwe for a T20I series after 2010, 2015 and 2016. India have never played a bilateral series against Zimbabwe at home, but they have toured the African country in the past. BCCI Secretary Jay Shah said it's an exciting phase in world cricket as Zimbabwe cricket is rebuilding, and that India would do its best to support the growth of cricket in the country. Football now, Lionel Messi and his Inter Miami teammates arrived in Tokyo, Japan for the next leg of their tour of Asia and will play Vissel Kobe today. Speaking to media for the first time since the team and their co-owner David Beckham were booed off the field after Messi missed friendly match against Hong Kong. Messi said on Tuesday it was unfortunate that he was unable to play, citing swelling in his abductor muscle.
It was some bad luck that I could not play on the day of the match in Hong Kong. In the first match in Saudi Arabia, I felt some pain in my abductor muscle and that's why I left that match. In the second match, I played several minutes so that I could test how I felt because I had an MRI and it showed a swelling in the abductor. It was not an injury, that's why I tried and tested it out.
Tennis now. The top court in global sport will appear the appeal of former Wimbledon and roller Garros champion Simona Halep against the doping suspension starting today. The 32-year-old Romanian has been provisionally suspended since October 2022 after testing positive for banned roxadustat, which stimulates the production of red blood cells at the US Open that year. Tennis anti-doping authorities also charged Halep with another doping offence last year due to irregularities in her athlete biologicals passport, a method designed to monitor different blood parameters over time to reveal potential doping. Halep has vigorously denied the charges. The hearings at the Lausanne-based Court of Arbitration for Sport are expected to run until Friday. Now, Saudi Arabia will host a new elite tennis exhibition featuring Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. With 3 other Grand Slam winners in October, the country's General Entertainment Authority has announced Carlos Alcaraz, Yannick Sinner, Daniil Medvedev and Holger Rune will also play at the 6th Kings Slam, which will form part of the Saudi Cultural and Entertainment Festival Riyadh season. With Yannick Sinner having recently won the Australian Open, Dane Rune is the only player on the 6-man roster without a Grand Slam title. While exhibition events in the Gulf are nothing new, they are usually played during breaks in the ATP season or after it has finished. The ATP has a full schedule in October, including mandatory Masters 1000 tournaments in Shanghai and Paris. Soccer now. Musa Tamari scored a brilliant curling strike to stun 2-time winners South Korea and send Jordan to their first Asian Cup final on Tuesday with a 2-0 victory. Yazan Al-Naimad put Jordan ahead at the start of the second half with a clever dink before Tamari doubled their lead with a superb solo effort. Jordan had never gone beyond the quarterfinals before this year's tournament. They will face host Qatar or Iran in Saturday's final. Now at Daming Palace National Heritage Park in Shenzhen City in China, visitors can enjoy contemporary lanterns infused with elements from the popular online game King of Glory. This year's Spring Festival, which falls on Saturday, combines traditional aesthetics with modern elements, creating a visual, stunning spectacle. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
Welcome to Jaipur.
बोला आप कौन? अरे वो सब छोड़ो, बहुत बढ़िया इन्वेस्टमेंट स्कीम आई है। आज 2000 डालोगे, कल 4 मिलेगा, परसों 8, फिर 16, 32, फिर 64। लिंक भेज दिया, जल्दी क्लिक करो।
यूपीआई कहता है इन फर्जी इन्वेस्टमेंट वाले स्कीमों में ना फंसो, अपने पैसे का ध्यान खुद रखो। क्या समझे?
क्या समझेंगे, आप ही समझा लीजिए, हम क्या समझेंगे।
आप भी ये जानकारी शेयर करें और अपने आसपास के भोले को बचाएं।
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त, हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त। Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products. Heartland of winter sports. Jammu and Kashmir is vibrant, diverse, ambitious, future-focused, full of life. Welcome to heaven on earth.
Uttar Pradesh welcomes to an experience like no other.
Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, our India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next stop, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrives in Israel as Washington reviews Hamas' response to hostage deal offer.
There's still a lot of work to be done, but we continue to believe that an agreement is possible and indeed essential.
US court rejects Donald Trump's immunity claim in 2020 election interference case. In ICC Under-19 World Cup, India reached 9th World Cup finals, beat South Africa in a thrilling contest at Benoni.